Okay, today we're going to look at the technique that's called completing the square, and we're going to use it to solve the equation x squared minus 4x minus 10 is equal to 0. So we could use other ways or other techniques to solve this quadratic equation. For example, we could try and factorize it. I don't think this factorizes. Or we could use the quadratic formula. But there's a nice technique, which is completing the square, which enables us to solve this. And completing the square is also very useful for other techniques down the line. So how do we do it? Well, the first thing we do is we take x squared minus 4x, and we have to have a look at the coefficient in front of the x squared. And we always want this to be 1. Once it's 1, the next thing we do is we look at the number or the coefficient in front of the x. And what we want to do is we want to halve that number. So you can see we have minus 4 here. And underneath, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a bracket, x minus, and we said we're going to halve that number squared, and I'm just going to write the minus 10 there as well. And that's equal to 0. So what I have is I have x minus 2 all squared, and I still have the minus 10 is equal to 0, and I've left a gap there. And the reason I've left a gap there is I just want to come across to the side here, and I want to multiply out x minus 2 all squared. Now if I do that, we should be quite happy. There's a binomial expansion, and x by x will give me x squared. Multiply the two terms together to get minus 2x, double it to get minus 4x, and then the second term, minus 2 squared is plus 4. So I want the top equation, this here, to be the same as the second equation, because otherwise I've changed it. I'm not allowed to change it because they both have to be the same. So this x minus 2 squared here, when I multiply it out, you can see there's an extra term here that I don't want. You see this plus 4 here. I need to get rid of it, because otherwise what ends up here is I have x minus 2 squared, which comes out to be x squared minus 4x plus 4 minus 10. And that's not the same as the original one, which is here. So what I have to do, in order to get rid of this plus 4 here, I have to take away 4 in my equation. So what I have to do is I have to minus 4. Now, it is always the second term squared. So as you can see here, the second term here is the minus 2. The minus 2 squared is obviously 4. So what we do is we have to take it 4 off. From here, it's very straightforward. All we do now is we tidy it up a bit, and then we'll continue with the process. So we have x minus 2 all squared. Minus 4 minus 10 is minus 14, and that's equal to 0. Now what we do is we send this across the other side. So we have x minus 2 squared is equal to 14. Now we're trying to get x equals to something, so we have to get rid of this square here. In order to do that, we have to take the square root of both sides. So if we do that, we get x minus 2 is equal to plus or minus root 14. Remember that when we do take a square root, we're always going to get a positive and a negative. There's always two answers. Then all we have to do is move this across, so we end up with x is equal to 2 plus or minus the root 14, and we are now finished. We have our two answers for x. So we have x is equal to 2 minus root 14, or x is equal to 2 plus root 14. So again, just to paraphrase what we've done there, we have to make sure that there is no number in front of the x squared, there's 1. Then what we do is we divide the number in front of the x by 2. We then write it into a bracket, in this case it's x minus 2 squared, but by putting the square in here, we end up with too much. And it's always the second one squared too much. So in this case it's minus 2 times minus 2, which is 4. So this bracket is giving us 4 too much. So we have to take that 4 off. We have the minus 10 that's come straight down, and then all we're doing is we're simplifying it. So x minus 2 squared minus that 14 is equal to 0. We take it across, and then what we do is we take the square root. Remember, the square root will always give you two answers, positive and minus, and then we end up with our two answers there. X is equal to 2 plus or minus root 14. What happens if we do have a number in front of the square then? So let's have a look at an example where that's the case. So suppose what we have is 3x squared minus 5x minus 11 is equal to 0. So here you can see that what we have is we have this 3 in front of the x squared. Well, I've already told you it needs to be 1. So what we do is we need to divide the whole expression, the whole equation, by 3. So if we do that, just quickly do this. So we've got divided by 3, divided by 3, divided by 3, divided by 3. And we can rewrite. And if I rewrite that, I'm going to get x squared minus 5/3 of x minus 11 over 3 is equal to 0. And now I do exactly the same thing. So what I do is I put my bracket in, x, and I halve 5/3. And if I halve 5/3, I end up with 5/6. Okay? And we put the square, and we bring the minus 11 over 3 down, just like we did before. But remember, I've got too much coming out of this bracket. If we go over to the side there, you can see what's going to happen. So I've got x minus 5/6 all squared. Again, remember what we do. X by x is x squared. And what we then have is minus 5/6 times 2 times x, which gives me minus 5/3 of x. But then what we're going to end up is 5/6 squared, so we're going to get plus 25 over 36. That's 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36. So what we have to do is we have to take this off our equation down here. So let's add that in. We need to take it away. So let's minus 25 over 36, and that's still equal to 0, guys. Then what we're going to do is we're just going to clean up the numbers on the right hand side there. So we have x minus 5 over 6 squared minus 25 over 36 minus 11 over 3. And if you just use your calculator, you'll get minus 157 over 36. So minus 157 over 36 is equal to 0. As before, what we're going to do now is we're going to throw that across the other side. So we have x minus 5 over 6 all squared is equal to 157 over 36 on the other side. And now we're going to take the square root on both sides. So we take the square root on the left-hand side. The square disappears to leave us with x minus 5/6 is equal to, and don't forget the plus or minus, the square root of 157 over 36. That's x minus 5/6 plus or minus. Well, we can't really do anything with the top square root, but we do know that the second or the bottom square root there, root 36, is 6. So we can change that to 6 there. Take it across now, or the minus 5/6 across the other side. We get x is equal to 5/6 plus or minus root 157 over 6, and then we can now combine the denominators because they're both the same to get x is equal to 5 plus or minus root 157 over 6. And we're done. Two roots, x is equal to 5 minus root 157 over 6, or the second root, we have x is equal to 5 plus 157 over 6.